backyard. My, my grandmother just goes behind the back and just was like, and just hits the little hook. I'm
Really?
like, what?
How old was she at the time?
You know what? She had to be all of, if I'm 8, she was in her early 50s, probably.
Really?
She was in her early 50s.
Wow.
Yeah, no, she had to be. No.
Okay.
This was many moons ago.
Gotcha.
And I'm like 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
We're all playing for fun. But she also crossed up my cousin who was like 16. You know what I'm saying? So grandma was not a joke. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So it was super cool. You know that story. Did your grandmother cross you up? You know,
she did. I actually had skills, so I played.
You played basketball?
I was this tall in 7th grade.
Okay,
but I played soccer and swam baseball. Right. And I got asked to come out for the basketball team in middle school. So yeah, I was pretty.
That's hard to picture you playing sports.
Oh yeah, soccer was sports in college.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So we're gonna welcome everybody. I'm Milton Ali.
And I'm Hampton Skurlock.
And we want to welcome you to the Investor Tribe podcast.
It's the vibe, y'all. Investor Tribe, y'all. Investor Tribe, y'all. Investor Tribe, y'all. Let's go.
And today we've got Brian Rios, a friend of mine. So he's a master at the midterm rentals and co-living. He has a company called Hobnob. No, you got 7, 8 years, seven years.
Tomorrow's going to be 7 years.
Tomorrow, 7 years. Okay, wow. So we've got quite a while. He's going to inform us, how co-living works, difference between short and midterm rentals, furnished rentals, how to advertise them, how the benefits and the increased cash flow you can get.
And
that type of investment.
And didn't you say we're going to learn everything in this podcast about midterm rentals today? Everything
all that we can squeeze.
No pressure. No pressure. Yeah, just everything you need to know.
Yep, he's going to regurgitate it, get it all out there.
Get it all out there. Let's go. I'm excited because this is going to be the podcast where you learn about midterm rentals. So I'm super excited about this. Thank you.
All right, my pleasure.
And that's probably a good place to start is what is a midterm rental versus a short-term rental versus the co-living? I know there's different.
Yes, absolutely. So short-term rentals are anything 30 days and under.
Okay.
And a midterm rental is anything above 30 days but less than a year. So once you sign that 12-month agreement, now you're at long-term rentals.
Okay.
Hobnob, we are month to month from day one. So
exclusively month to month.
Correct. We don't have to be. There's other midterm operators that they do 3-month minimum, 6-month minimum. But what we've seen is like people want their flexibility. So it's like month to month from day one. We don't want to tie you down. And if you're not happy, you're good to go. But if we're not happy with you, we can just give you a non-renewal. So that's the beauty of it.
Love that.
Gotcha. Okay. So 30 days or less for short term.
Correct.
30 days to a year for
midterm.
Then a year or longer for long term.
Yeah.
And the co-living, what's
so co-living is whenever you buy a single family home. It doesn't necessarily have to be a single family. We have a 4-plex that we do this with, but you just rent the bedrooms out inside the units. So right now, our biggest single family home that we have is a 12-bedroom mansion that's right on the river, and we rent those out by the room. So that's co-living when you just rent the rooms out, and then the other spaces, the common areas are shared. Living rooms, most of the time the bathrooms, laundry rooms, dining rooms, all those.
That is amazing. That is fascinating. So was that, and I'm sure you're going to get into this a little bit later, was that purchased with that in mind, or was that converted later? Because purchasing with that type of ROI or cash on cash return. So that's just to try to, I know you're going to get into it later, but just that specific.
So with this property, we got lucky. The owners, it was already an 11-bedroom house. We had it at the 12th bedroom, but the owners, they were trying to sell a mansion with 11 bedrooms because they had foster kids. And people that look for that type of living, they don't want 11 bedrooms. They want 3, 4 bedrooms. And then the other spaces just some type for activities, entertainment centers, gyms. So he had it on the market for a good solid year. And then I met him through my mom, and my mom told him what we did. And he said, okay, well, my property might be right up his alley. So, and it was.
Well, that's awesome. Shout out to foster parents.
Absolutely.
I'm a big proponent of that. And so, Brian, how did you get started with midterm rentals? How did that even happen?
So I went to IU with and graduated with a business degree, and my dream was to climb the corporate ladder, right? Work for a job where I flew around the world. I watched a movie when I was young, and I saw this guy. He worked for a large corporation. He traveled the world in airplanes, and he went to these fancy cocktail parties and all the ladies. And I was like, I don't want to be that guy. That's kind of what my thought was. I'm going to go to school for business, and then once I graduate, I'm going to work for a large corporation. So I landed a job at GE about 3 months after I graduated, and I thought to myself, oh, finally, I've made it. I'm going to climb that corporate ladder. I'm going to be on a jet, on a private jet, working for GE. That was my dream, right? Around four months go by, and I just bought a new house, and I bought a new car. And GE calls me, and they're like, hey, listen, we are downsizing. We're going to have to let you go. Oh, my heart dropped. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills? I just bought this new house. I put so much money down for it. And I just bought a new car. My son finally has his own room. So I thought to myself, okay, I went home and cried that night. And then the next morning I woke up and I said, okay, I'm not going to lose this house. Back in college, I actually rented a house out, and it was a 6-bedroom house. And after I got some roommate buddies, I was practically living rent free. After I got their portion of the rent, I had to come up with maybe $25, $50, if that. So a light bulb didn't go off because I wasn't making any money. And I was a server back then. So this go around, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to lose my home. So I'm going to get some roommates, and I'm going to go back to serving until I find that other corporate job. So I found these roommates, and they weren't college students. They were working adults. They could afford more in rent. After about 2 or 3 months go by, I'm sitting here doing my finances, and I'm scratching my head. Wait, this can't be right. Not only is everything, the mortgage, the utilities, the taxes, the insurance, not only is all that getting paid for, I'm making an extra $150 a month. That light bulb went off. Oh my God. What if I can find a house that didn't cost as much as my house did and has more bedrooms? So I spent 2 weeks in the basement doing research, and long story short, I am now at 75 units with a hybrid between private midterm rentals and co-living. Yeah.
That is fascinating. That is fascinating. Came out in 2 weeks in a basement. Like we should all do that.
Lab, dude.
In the lab. I mean, literally you cooked up hot knob just by that. So that is definitely fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I totally love it.
Yeah.
And so in your journey, so you went from 1, and then, so I know you went from 1 to 75, but what was number 2?
Yeah. So that one was a 4-bedroom house in New Albany. And since I lost my job, I researched a house, and I called my lender. I was like, hey, can I get a loan on this? And he said, well, you just lost your job at GE, and you were not making that much money serving.
So yes. Go.
I was like, don't tell me no, tell me how.
Right.
I don't want to hear no. I want to hear how. So he said, okay, how much money do you have? And I told him, he's like, well, you're going to have to put all that down, and your mom is going to have to co-sign for this property. It's going to have to go under her name. I said, done. So I called the realtor, and I was like, hey, tell the sellers that I'm going to go ahead and put what they're asking for, but I'm going to double the earnest money. She's like, why would you do that? And I told her, I said, I don't want to talk myself out of doing this. I just don't.
Come on.
So they accepted the offer. I took the double earnest money in Milton, Hampton. I kid you not, I was freaking out until closing because I'd never advertised for tenants. I always advertised for roommates because I was able to live amongst them and hold the peace. But then it kicked in. Oh my God, what am I doing? I literally put all of my savings account into this house, and my poor mom had to sign for it.
And this is non-owner occ.
Exactly.
So then
yeah. So, and the entire time I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm actually having to advertise for tenants. And well, what if they don't get along? My dad, he told me horror stories of tenants like trashing people's houses. And I was like, I couldn't sleep at night. And the day, it took 2 or 3 weeks to close. And I remember the day of closing, the sellers gave me the keys, and I met my first tenant at that property. And then 2 weeks later, it was full.
And were you
sticking? Were you doing mixed, men and women, all men, all women? Or
The first property was all men because that's kind of what I did in college. I had roommates, but I wasn't trying to advertise as all gentlemen. I was just looking for roommates. And whenever someone I was advertising on a platform that's big, pretty known, but so no girls or ladies would want to live with a guy for the most part, the way that I was advertising for roommates. But this go around, I was kind of advertising for tenants like if they were my roommates. And I remember one day thinking, okay, so there's 4 bedrooms and I did the math and I'll be making an extra $600 a month in profit. I still called it profit. I had no idea there was this huge real estate world out there. So, and then I thought to myself, okay, what if I stay in one of the rooms? That way I can hold the peace. Well, no, because then I'll be breaking even. And I'm not doing this to break even. So, yeah, 2 weeks later, the house was full. But about 2 or 3 months after that, they all started having problems amongst themselves. Yeah.
Okay, so because my assumption would be that if you set up the midterm rental full, there'll be no problems. There'll be no issues whatsoever. Everyone lived in peace and harmony.
Emily cleans the bathroom. Everyone
Oh my
washes the
gosh.
dishes, takes out the trash, right?
I think still by afterwards.
And it was completely perfect. So is that what you're going to tell us?
No, it was not.
Oh, okay.
So after 2 or 3 months go by, they all know that I'm the owner. And they keep calling me with issues. And I'm thinking, okay, listen, guys, house meeting. Let's all meet at the house on this date. So we did. And one by one, there was 4 of them. I said, okay, what's your problem? What's your issue? Well, I buy all the toilet paper. And then whenever I go out of town and I come home, there's never any toilet paper. I said, okay, what if we buy the toilet paper? Is that okay with you? He said, yeah, that's fine. Okay, next one. What's your problem? Well, I clean and clean and clean. I do a lot of the detail cleaning and nobody ever does detail cleaning. I said, okay, what if I hire a cleaning crew that comes in here once a week and we'll detail the common areas? Like we'll bleach the bathrooms, we'll mop, we'll sweep, but you guys still have to keep up after yourselves, like wash your own dishes and that kind of stuff. Does that solve your issue? He's like, yeah, that's fine. Okay. The next guy, he's from India. I was like, well, what's your problem? He said, well, I'm from India and I like it really hot. And thermostat up to 76. It keeps
There's that.
Yeah, it keeps going.
There is that.
Someone
Yes.
keeps bringing it back down.
That. Oh my.
70. I was like, oh, that's hot. So I told him, I was like, okay, what about this? I'm going to buy a Nest thermostat where you can set the range. And I'm not going to let it go from 68 to 72. That's the only range. And back then I just heard, don't let your tenants have space heaters. So that was the only rule I gave them. You can't have a space heater in your room. And I told that ending, I was like, but I'll allow you to have a space heater in your room. Does that work for you? He's like, yeah, that's fine. The 4th guy, I said, well, what's your problem? He said, well, I don't necessarily have a problem with the tenants. I just don't know when you're going to wake up and say, okay, enough is enough, because you're the owner. And one, we don't have a lease with you. And I see how we drive you crazy. So I don't know if you're going to wake up one day and say, okay, I'm done. You guys got to get out. I'm taking this house back. And I said, oh, that's a good one. I'll get back to you.
Get out. No.
No, so I went home and I spent another 2 weeks in my basement figuring out, okay, LLCs.
Okay.
One time I went 3 days without showering. Yeah, it was that bad.
So you were in the basement really cooking up
Exactly.
hobnob. So I really, this is awesome. This is really good stuff because, that just speaks to the focus and intention that you have to have in order to solve problems, because we're often paid for the problems we solve, right? So.
And I did. I mean, I figured out how to create my own LLC, how to start my own website, leasing agreements. Oh my God. There were many platforms that offered you a sample of a lease agreement. And I'm thinking, this doesn't work for me because I was renting out by the room. All the samples that I was finding was for traditional 1-year leases. So I literally had to come up with and this was way before ChatGPT and all the AI stuff is out. So I literally had to write one myself. Took me a long time. And how to create my website. That's another one. Yeah.
Those things can take time, for sure. And speaking of that, on our website, we've got a lot of different, the templates the lease agreements, et cetera. The long-term lease agreements, I have to check so we got shorter midterm on there, but the long-term lease agreements we have, purchase agreements, contractor agreements.
You can go at inbtribe.com for that.
Yes, we try to make it as easy as possible and get you access to this information, because it's not easy if you're not time, energy, money to dedicate to that. And I know I'd go to some of those legal sites sometimes, but I need this type of letter, and it'd give you a sampling, or you couldn't print it off, or they want $39.99 a month.
And sometimes those, they're not state specific.
Yes. And so you pay for something, or you spend a lot of time, something you can't even use. Yeah. So, but we got some disclaimers on our website that say, make sure you get this reviewed, or what's good in our state, and, consult an attorney on such matters. But so we're not giving legal, investment, or tax advice here. We're just saying, hey, we're here to help, give you some templates, give you something to go on, and then you can have it reviewed or have your,
And I wish I would have had access to something like this, because it would have saved me a ton of time and headache. And it was a 4-year learning curve, honestly. And that because I was pride, I was like, oh, I can do it all myself. I can do it all myself. No one's going to
Famous last words.
And then whenever I realized I can't be the best at everything, I'm only human. And then I started being like, okay, I'm going to hire a property manager. Okay. Oh, that's a little bit off my plate. Yeah. So my time is worth more, is what I'm trying to say. My time is the most valuable thing that I have.
That does make sense, Brian. And so what we're going to do is now move from, so now we're seeing how you had to get on your journey, because I love that. I love that there's growth in the journey. There's a lot of that. Then you started helping others. How did that journey start?
So I just recently started wanting to help others. And it was mainly because of my brain cancer that I had. I was still a little bit cocky and prideful before my brain cancer. And after I woke up from my surgery, I couldn't talk, I couldn't write, and I couldn't type. So that was my gift that God gave me. And he took it away. And I sat there thinking, why does he take it away? Like, why? It's because I wasn't helping people. Helping people is the greatest feeling ever. Yeah, materialistic things, they feel good. If I buy a Ferrari, it's going to feel good for 2-3 weeks, and then it's gone. But if I help someone, I foster a little 8-year-old boy. When I'm 80, I'll be able to think of that moment, and it'll still feel good. So that's kind of why I think God gave me the brain cancer and took my speech away, because he wanted me to realize that, hey, you're not helping people. You're being greedy. You're making a lot of money. You're not helping anyone. Yeah, you might give to charities and here and there, but that's not enough. You got to show people what you do. So, and that was in November 2021. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So now you're on a mission to educate, inform others, or help them build wealth and better themselves. So
this is the greatest feeling ever, where you just have your property set up on a system, and you're literally making money while you sleep. I could literally go to another country for 6 months, and I would still make the same amount of money. If I
love that, how you have looked at being in the service of others, and that's what Investor Tribe is all about. Is what we consider talent. And that talent, like we teach a framework at the Investor Tribe about CEO, create the energy or conduct the orchestra, engage talent, own the results. And so much of that is in engaging talent. And we see talent as individuals who achieve mastery and lifts up the other. Mm-hmm. We find that, Scott Galloway often talks about how greatness is found in the agency of others. Mm-hmm. So when you surround yourself with people that are others focused, it's like there's a greater goal that is there. And it's so important to be able to do that. Mm. And so what I want to do is take a short break. Drew, can you cut the check? We got some bills to pay, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Brian Rios, and I am owner and founder of Hobnob. We specialize in midterm rentals. And we have been doing midterm rentals for about 7 years now. I have a course that I've worked on. It's called Digital Mastery Program, where I literally show you step by step on how to analyze your market, all the way down to how to run your midterm rental property. You can go to brianrios.info to find more information. And I do have paid programs where it's a digital course. And also in the digital course, there's a second thing that you can buy where it's not just a course, it's 6 months of virtual calls with a group of up to 5 students where we will literally talk about anything that you have in mind and go through any questions that you have.
And we're back. And so I find it fascinating that you want to help others. So let's talk a little bit more about midterm mastery.
Okay. So Midterm Mastery is a digital course that I developed over the past year. And there are 3 different levels. The first level is just the course itself. It's just a digital platform where you go and you learn how we hobnob, we analyze the market, how we find the deals, how we negotiate the deals, all the way down to how we manage the property itself. And this is all online and you can go at your own pace. And it's pretty much a rinse and repeat formula. And it's going to be a live course. It is a live course where I regularly update it with more information and different strategies that I've used throughout my entire real estate career. And I want to keep updating it because I'm really passionate about midterm rentals. So the more I learn, the more you guys are going to know. And it's lifetime access, one-time charge.
That is awesome.
And what's the website for that?
So it's midtermmastery.com, but there's a hyphen between mid and then between term and mastery. Can they see that?
They can't see that.
Oh, they can't see that? Okay.
So now you just broke the fourth wall. So now we have a board here that Drew helps us with, and it's a directing board. He's like, he kind of says like, why don't you, quiet it down, or more energy, or smile,
I haven't seen him write anything, so I guess
no,
we're doing good.
Yeah, he's doing good, but so now you kind of, the curtain, you kind of bust open the curtain. So thanks, Brian.
My pleasure. People got to see it, man. They got to see that we're human.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, we're not perfect. And if we think we're perfect, we're done. We're done for, man.
Yeah, that's so
I was telling my son that that the moment that you think your baseball skills are perfect, you're done, bro. You failed. Don't ever think that you're perfect because there's always something to learn. There's always going to be someone doing better than you that you can learn from.
Continuous improvement.
Right.
So the website, for those of you that can't, everybody in the world except for us.
Right, except for us 3, right?
And Andrew.
And Drew over there, we got www, then mid-term-mastery.com. And there's even a special promo code for all the investors.
Yeah, so anyone that's on this watching this, just put the promo code Investor Tribe 25%, and that'll give you 25% off any program that we have.
And is it 25% spelled out, or just the little?
Just the 2 and the 5, and then the little symbol.
Okay, that is awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, can we speak to So let's say that I turned off the podcast right now.
Okay.
And I wanted to get started. Don't turn off the podcast, right? Please do not turn off the podcast, because he's getting ready to give you the help, right? So, just wait a few minutes after he answers, then turn it off and see if you can implement it, right? So take the course and then go out and implement. However, if someone said, hey, I love what you're talking, I love your story. I don't have 2 weeks to go in the basement. However, I want to go get started. What should I do?
Well, in the course, I actually include all the documents that we use and over the last 7 years that I've drafted up. So you did buy the course, or you didn't buy the course?
You didn't buy the course.
Okay.
So, so what we want to do is kind of help somebody just do it with a basic overview, because I can say, hey, I would love to go buy a house, and I can go buy a 4-bedroom, and I can, however, without getting too into the weeds here, why? Let's even talk about that. Why should I even do it? And then I want to do it. How do I go about it?
So the biggest reason of why you should do it is because of the whole, and I know this is a cliche word, but financial freedom. Okay. That's the biggest reason why you should do it. You should just do it because you're going to be free from all of the income that midterm rentals give you at the end of the month, which is a lot higher than traditional 1-year leases, a lot higher, because people pay for simplicity. All of our units are fully furnished, month to month, all utilities included. So because they don't have to buy any furniture, they don't have to sign a long-year lease, they don't have to put any utilities in their name, these residents that we're getting, they pay top dollar for the units that we have. Yet our units are really nice, and they have granite countertops, and they're really nice. But people pay top dollar for simplicity and convenience. And today, I say this all the time. Today, we are the most connected generation due to technology, but we're also the loneliest generation due to technology and social media. We don't have that human interaction in our lives. So that's where co-living comes in. Co-living, it's a shared living situation, but our houses, man, they build communities within themselves. So you can tell that they're.
I think it was answering me why. And I can see the reasons why. I was trying to think of financially, if there's a 4 or 5 bedroom house, if it would normally rent for $2,000, in a certain market, I'm just throwing numbers out there. If you had says a 5 bedroom house rent for $2,000, some markets it's different, some it's high, some it's low, but we're just throwing numbers out there. If you had a hobnob house with 5 individual rooms in a common area, what would rent like, or what look like on that, and what would you profit doing long-term rental? What's the short-term rental? Like, what type of difference is there?
Gotcha. So there's a lot of benefits with renting out by the room, and one of the biggest ones is that you are never 100% vacant ever, because with a traditional 1-year lease, you have one tenant, one lease, and once that tenant moves out, you're at 100% vacancy. But with us, since we rent multiple rooms, the worst we've ever had, even since I first got started and I didn't know anything, was like 25% vacancy. That's the worst I've ever had.
Wow.
With renting by the room.
So that is a bar, right? Yeah. So when you're thinking about long-term rental, you can be out, you can have a 50%, occupancy rate, and you are thinking about selling property at this point, right? However, you've always had mostly a 75% or higher occupancy rate.
Yes.
Now, do you find that because you're thinking of rooms, 4 bedrooms or 6 bedrooms or however many bedrooms you have on hand, has there ever been a situation where you're thinking, okay, I got 100 doors and I got 100 bedrooms right now? Some event in one of the cities where you own property, there is an event that takes place, and now you are forced to deal with migration or, those types of moves where things happen. You get a whole group of travel nurses, and all of a sudden the task is over for several of them. The contract's over for several of them. And now you're forced with, have you ever run, are you ever up against things like that?
I'm sure you guys are aware there is a shortage of housing in these next few years. And with that, as human beings, we have 3 necessities: water, food, and shelter.
Right.
That's it. We're always going to pay for those 3 things before we go out to the movies, before we buy anything that we don't need. So shelter being one of those necessities. Is there a risk? Yeah, there's a risk with everything. But I feel like real estate, it has the lowest risk that's out there. It's real. You could touch it. Not like the stock market where it's paper, and if it crashes, you're done for. You don't have nothing to show. With real estate, it's real. Like I said, you can touch it. And even though it went down in value, I'm sure you guys already know, but real estate has always gone upwards. It goes up and down, but it's always gone in an upwards trajectory. So real estate today, I was actually watching, I saw a fact about this. In California, it went 650% higher than it was in the early 1900s. And in this area, Louisville, it was like 350% than in the 1900s.
Right. So your clientele is pretty much individuals that are thinking through, they want to occupy for a longer period of time in the grand scheme. So
yeah.
Is there a tenure to the average tenant?
Yeah. So our leases are month to month, but our average tenant stay is 8 months. And we have a gentleman that has been with us almost 5 years. And we asked him the other day, we're like, hey, listen, we don't want to be rude, but why do you stay with us so long? And why are you staying? He's like, it's like living at home. It's simple. You guys take care of all the cleaning. You take care of all the utilities. I don't have to do anything. I get to live in a mansion for only $900 a month. with a swimming pool right next to the river. Yeah,
So that place there had, you said 12 bedrooms.
12 bedrooms. Yeah.
So he's at 900 a month,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got times 12. Versus if you just rented that house out to be maybe task to
Yeah.
find somebody who wanted a 12-bedroom house for a long-term rental. But what would that look like, and what's the profit difference or between a long-term versus?
So let's say you did want to rent this 12-bedroom house out to a single individual. Like you said, it's going to be hard. But like, let's say you did find somebody, I think they would only pay like $6,000 for this house.
That's thinking they have $400 or $500 a bedroom.
Yeah, yeah. But what we're getting is closer to 10. Yeah, 900 times 12.
So on a practical matter, is there, because I find that to be fascinating that you're able to, so that individual, or you would have someone who is on site that maybe is discounted that could take care of the property on hand, or is there just you have separate companies take care of all your properties?
So I have Hobnob. Essentially, it's a property management company. So Hobnob is who we manage these properties, and then every
Half of the
exactly, and then every house has its own LLC depending on who's the owner of it. So there's multiple investors in different houses. I own a few myself, and between the houses, the LLC that they're under, and Hobnob, we have a management agreement between those two entities. So I literally sign both for the property manager and for the house itself.
So I'm super excited about wanting to give this a try. I think this is fascinating because there are so many ways for you to make money in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much opportunity, Brian, and I find that you are in a niche that is that's not often talked about.
Yeah,
It's moderately talked about and discussed, and I know you have a few rentals that can be converted and different things like that, and we've discussed. I've discussed buying some from you, and you're here. I think it's super sweet to just be able to have this conversation about the midterm rental versus long-term rental versus the short-term rental.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that that midterm rental seems to be a very sweet spot because we know that there is a lot of risk in the short-term rental world with regulation, with a lot of frustration with local municipalities, and let's crack down across, the crackdown, across the United States, as well as, and then there's a inherent risk in long term, and so you have that long term because the margins are not as high.
Yeah,
but it seems like that midterm is super sweet. So,
and whenever I first got started doing this, I had no idea that I was entering a world that today would be in such high demand. No idea. Because at first it was out of necessity. Whenever I closed on my second investment property, I was still trying to find that corporate job. I just figured I'd do this on the side for now. I didn't even know about zoning whenever I closed on my second investment property.
Which is important to check into for all you out there. If
when you want to do it,
because here in Louisville, the city looks at room rentals as a negative thing, like a boarding home. And I mean, I get it because back in the early 1900s, there were slumlords and parts of the town where they would just like cram everyone that they could inside of a house, and it was safety issues. So Louisville literally cracked down on rooming houses. But here we are trying to do it better, more professional. We have certain policies in place. We do credit checks on everybody, background checks. We verify income. We ask for a full month deposit. Like, we do things to protect our tenants. And our average room, just the room only, is like $750 a month, $800 between.
That is
just for the room.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, Brian, I want to thank you for coming to join us, to hang out with us today. It's been phenomenal. I mean, just your knowledge about in your story and your knowledge about midterm rentals, helping us out today, helping the investor tribe out. You are a member of the tribe, so will you come back
Y'all forget
hang out with us, you know, because we want to get into this again in the future. So we got to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's much to learn here. And in Hampton, people can find us on social media. Where can they find us?
They can find us several places. We're on X, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We have a podcast that drops every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Our website is invtribe.com, and that's our handle on most of those platforms, except for Facebook. We are at Investor Tribe. Everywhere else, we're at INV Tribe. And that's also the website, invtribe.com.
And you can also learn about, midterm mastery because it's on one of our it's on our socials as well. So, this was absolutely amazing. And I love that. And my name is Milton Ali.
And I'm Hampton Scurlock.
And we'll catch you on the flip side of the Investor Tribe.
The Investor Tribe podcast is a production of the Investor Tribe. To learn more, visit invtribe.com.